Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.
I'm here to tell you tonight that the businessmen, the mayor of this city, the police commissioner of this city, and everybody in the white power structure of this city must take a responsibility for everything.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
Luther and I and everyone in this arena tonight are unified by the same great American values. We're proud of our country. We respect our flag. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Race is when you use your power and influence to subject people into inferiority. Utterances can't be racist.
Look around you, man. They own this shit. They own this couch you sitting on, them shoes you got on your feet, this building, this school, this country, you. We're behind enemy lines, dog.
So you must first of all remember that this system was not originally designed with black people in mind. Right on, And it definitely was not prepared for black people to, in the end, begin to demand their rights and an equal share in this country which they've died for. Right on. Hey, and we definitely are not going back to Africa.
In the church, we used to sing the song, "Good news, the chariot is coming." While you sit here today, knowing that you have come to hear good news, you must realize in advance what good news for you might be bad news for somebody else. What good news for the sheep might be bad news to the wolf.
They say, oh, things are getting so much better for you. In 1849, it was hitting blacks on the head 100 times a day. In 1990, they hit them 48 times a day. Isn't it better? Oh, it's got to be better. You're saying 52 blows.
The only purpose of most black Americans on earth today is to destroy.
I think that's noble. Italians love Italians. When Irish love Irish. But when a nigga loves a nigga, it's an unpardonable sin. They have blood in their hands. When we say they have blood in their hands, we are not saying him, George Bezos, went and killed. But white people colonized us. They dispersed us. They enslaved our people. They sucked our economy dry. They are still sucking it dry even today. That's white people. Tony Blair, George Bush, Napoleon Bonaparte, Leopold, Adolf Hitler, Benjamin Netanyahu. All white people, they are the same. They are racist and they are full of hate.
I've been waiting for you. You have many questions, and though the process has altered your consciousness, you remain irrevocably human. Ergo, some of my answers you will understand, and some of them you will not. Concordantly, while your first question may be the most pertinent, you may or may not realize it is also the most irrelevant.
Why am I here?
Our world is coming crumbling down. The coons are coming.
You got to understand that white America has an uncanny way of making the victim the victimizer. Excuse me, master, for putting my head in the way of your club. Not that your club is brutalizing my head and putting hickeys on it. My head got in the way of your free swing and broke your shiny stick, and I want to apologize for that.
Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix. You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision. While it remains a burden assiduously avoided, it is not unexpected and thus not beyond a measure of control, which has led you inexorably here.
There are more connections in the human body than there are stars in the galaxy. We possess a gigantic network of information to which we have almost no access.
Matrix is older than you know. I prefer counting from the emergence of one integral anomaly to the emergence of the next, in which case this is the sixth version.
5 months before. 3. There are only 2 possible explanations. 5 months before. Either no one told me, or no one knows.
Precisely. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equations.
Control me! I'm gonna smash you to fucking kill you! You can't make me do anything like Chris!
Choice. The problem is choice.
Let us remember that we are not brutalized because we're Baptists. We're not brutalized because we're Methodists. We're not brutalized because we're Muslims. We're not brutalized because we're Catholics. We're brutalized because we are black people in America.
Because white people made him to be what he is. They made him to look evil. Because that's their role, to make all of us black people to look evil and to hate ourselves. I can't hate.
You're a nigga till you die. If you're a poor nigga, you're a poor nigga. If you're a rich nigga, you're a rich nigga. But you never stop being a nigga. And if you get to be educated, you're just an educated nigga.
I'm told every day I'm on air that I'm racist because I call out racism. That is maddening to me, and I'm crying about it because it's crazy.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is teaching you and I and trying to tell the white man to get this powder keg out of his house. Let the black man separate from his house. Let the black man have his own house. Let the black man have his own land and his own property.
I thought the bitch was white! Damn it! I thought the bitch was white!
That's true.
I think that white people are so guilty, knowing what they've done to black people, that they feel if the deeds were reversed, they would hate the black man if he had done the same thing to them. So it's actually, it reflects a guilt complex on the part of whites when they ask us, do we hate them? and if you notice, Uncle Sam has formed a habit of going all over the world. He calls it the ugly American or the American image. He thinks that everybody hates him because it's a guilt complex. And if you think that if you are worried about Europeans hating you, and they're your allies and your cousins, well, naturally it would follow for you to think that Negroes in this country would hate you, especially in light of what has been done to black people in this country by white people.
Now, check it out. The white ball dominates everything, right? Knocks the shit out the yellow ball, the red ball, right? And the game's over when the white ball drives the black ball completely off the table.
But you have to see that all of this is hypocrisy.
I love Malcolm. Malcolm called me the Sunday that he died. I was working Basin Street East. He said, "Brother Greg, you coming by today?" And I said, "Malcolm, I love you." And I said, "I love you so much, I don't even want to take a chance to be there." He said, "What do you mean, Brother Greg?" I said, "Well, I close tonight, Sunday night at Basin Street East." And I said, "But I had my wife book me a flight into Chicago at 8 o'clock this morning, and I'm going to Chicago, and I had way beneath my salary booked me into a college about 10 miles from the airport. And I'm going to go there and speak this afternoon, and I'm going to stay there until they tell me you dead. Because I'm not going to let this government get two of us for the price of one. And I'm going to call Adam Clayton Powell when I finish talking to you and beg him not to come there. Because today, the United States government is going to get you."
Mr. Blows Your Mind is coming with another thought. I'm not sure if y'all can hear me. Now let me turn this up because for those who've been here for the last couple days, let me turn it up a little bit, see if y'all can hear. Let me see. Somebody, if you like, let me know if you can hear me or not. Because last couple of days, I know when I was trying to do it, you see, it took me 2 days to get back on square, right? Because technical difficulties, right? Somebody want to give me a one that you can hear me clearly? I appreciate it if you do that. See if anybody who's willing to do that. Let's see. Well, anyway, I'm not sure whether you can hear me or not. So, again, I'm your host, the Whiteologist, Mr. Blows Your Minds. This show is to give you the scene, the landscape, the picture, the aspect where the earth meets the sky. The angle, the slant, the turn of mind, where one is coming from, the spirit, right? We also, as the descendants of the greatest people that ever been in this United States, I'm asking that the ancestors be with my mind and heart as I display the histories and try to elaborate from my point of view about things that I see that we deal with as a people. So, we shall seek the truth no matter where it leads, whether it be in the hills, in the gutters, east, west, north, south. Okay? So today's topic is about what happened on August 21st through today being August 23rd. It was a lot of history, especially on that 21st, man. I think the powers that be, whether one of you are agent in here or not, all three of you are agent or not, and if not, I'm not talking to you. But somebody broke out. Somebody to tell me if you can hear now, because if you can't hear me, I don't want to keep going. I'm not sure whether you can hear me or not. Can anybody hear me? Can somebody give me a thumbs up, a finger, a one, something? Anybody like to do that? Nobody? Nobody's plugged in? All right. I just have to go with it. So anyway, August 21st, there was a lot that happened on that particular day. So today what I was going to do is going to do a retro, even though today's the 23rd. I'm going to go back to the 21st and work my way to the 23rd for those who are here and those who enjoy what I do. We're going to start out. So for a lot of us, we're not keeping up with the histories that's out here. And so we think that history really doesn't have a real significance in our lives. We think that the past had nothing to do with our present, right? And if we're not having a, mind as into what history has transpired and that what has started to where we are today, and not keep remembrance, then that past of that history will be buried by those who don't want you to actually have that history. So guess what happened on this date of 8/21? Well, do you know the slave revolt erupted in Virginia in 1831, right? Check this out. Believing himself chosen by God, right, to lead his people out of slavery, Nat Turner launches a bloody slave insurrection in Southampton County, Virginia. Turner, a slave and educated minister, planned to capture the county's armory at Jerusalem, Virginia, and then march 30 miles to Dismal Swamp, where his rebels would be able to elude the pursuers. With 7 followers, he slaughtered Joseph Travis, his slave owner, and Travis' family, and then set off across the countryside, hoping to rally hundreds of slaves to his insurrection and en route to Jerusalem. During the next 2 days and nights, Turner and 75 followers rampaged through Southampton County, killing about 60 whites. Local whites resisted the rebels, and then the state militia, consisting of some 3,000 men, crushed the rebellion. Only a few miles from Jerusalem, Turner and all his followers were dispersed, captured, or killed. In the aftermath of the rebellion, scores of African Americans were lynched, though many of them were non-participants in the revolt. Turner himself was not captured until the end of October, and after confessing without regret to his role in the bloodshed, he was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death. On November 11th, he was hanged in Jerusalem. Turner's rebellion was the largest slave revolt in U.S. history and led to a new wave of oppression legislation prohibiting the movement, assembly, and education of slaves. Right? So we have our ancestor, Nat Turner, who, based on him, knowing the Bible, right? And felt that in his spirit that what was being transpired and oppressed upon him and his people of that time, that he felt that God called him to do something that was in his spirit, in his heart, in his mind. Now, it depends on which side of the coin that you're on, whether you believe that to be true or not. One person would be against it, another one might be for it. But again, that was the history of that day of 8/21/1831, in commemorative of our ancestor Nat Turner. Whether those who believe it was right or wrong, we give commemorative on this day to that ancestor. And while I'm at it, I think I will give, let's see if I can pull that up. I think I can pull that up. And I think I will just go ahead and, let's see if I can take a little interlude. Let's see, hold on. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to play this for you. See if I can do this the right way.
Nat Turner's 1831 slave rebellion stuns the nation and pushes the South's slave policing system to its limits.
For white Virginians and white slaveholders across the South, it was a shock.
The paranoia shoots off the scale. 50 dead today, how many dead tomorrow?
In Southampton County, Virginia, Nat Turner, an enslaved preacher, has his own interpretation of the Bible. He believes that God has chosen him to avenge the sins of slavery. As Turner makes his rounds preaching in the fields, he quietly enlists other slaves to his cause. For months, the men meet secretly, conspiring on the plans of their uprising. In the early morning hours of August 21st, 1831, Turner and his men launched one of the largest slave rebellions in American history. The rebels moved from home to home, killing every white person they meet. As they advanced towards the nearby town of Jerusalem, more recruits joined them. The local slave patrols have failed to uncover Turner's plot. So the militia is called out to track down and kill the rebels. For 36 hours, the rebellion rages on. Church bells ring out in distress. Rumors spread among whites that the whole southern slave population has finally exploded in revolt, and that the British are invading to liberate the slaves. As panic swells, the United States government provides important military support. And that support is ensured by slaveholder power.
Don't forget that slavery is protected not only by the slaveholder, not only by the local militia or the state militia, but also by the full force of the military might of the United States of America. Except for that, slavery would not have been possible in the South.
As the hunt for Nat Turner and his men continues, 800 U.S. troops join 2,000 local militiamen. Within a week, the rebellion is squashed. More than 50 rebels are captured. Nearly 60 white men, women, and children have been killed. The violence doesn't fully subside until Nat Turner is captured 2 months later on October 31st, not by a patrol or slave catcher, but by a farmer, by accident. Turner is tried, hanged, and skinned. In all, the state executes 55 black people for conspiring with Turner.
The Turner Rebellion frightened whites literally out of their minds, and yet even that wasn't strong enough to provoke them to get rid of slavery as an institution.
Because for slave owners, profit outweighs morality and their own safety. By 1830, nearly 2 million slaves are fueling the Southern economy, and slaveholders aren't about to give up their free labor. And still, slaves run, and slave hunters expand their networks for tracking them.
There you have our ancestor Nat Turner. On that date, 8/21/1831, was the slave revolt of Southampton, Virginia. Once again, this is not some of the history that's going to be taught in these schools. A lot of us who have children, whether it be your grandparents or children, or you yourself might be young enough to even learn this. This is not the curriculum that you're going to be taught in school. For some odd reason, this is not to be told or not to be really explored. Now, also, when you look at what happened with that revolt with our ancestors, what you also get is that, based on as you've seen in the video, it talked about that it frightened the people of that time because, again, when you know you're doing something that is not right, how do you sleep good at night? How do you know that your comfort, your luxury, and everything that you hold dear as to what makes you and yours, there's some other people who suffer the toil to make you live in the life of comfort. And not you didn't just do it for just a year, 5 years, 10 years. You did this for hundreds of years. Remember when the first time I came back, when I did the 1619, right? Which was the anniversary on August 20th, was just the anniversary of 399 years from the time they told us of the 20 slaves that came to Virginia, right? So after, what, 212 years or 21 years, right? Nat Turner raised up. Because again, is it that people want to war, or is this injustice injustice? No one is sitting conspiring, talking about what they want to do. People just want justice. So those people at that time, after that had taken place, couldn't sleep good at night. As you heard the woman in the videos explain, she said that it brought a fear that they want to now bring legislation as into what needed to be done, right? So by the time, also on this date of 8/21, at another time, we have this particular history to be told. For those who don't know, it was the Lincoln-Douglas debate. Now, it says that the Lincoln-Douglas debate, also known as the Great Debates of 1858, were a series of 7 debates between Abraham Lincoln, the Republican candidate from the United States Senate from Illinois, and incumbent Senator Stephen Douglas, the Democratic Party candidate. At the time, the U.S. Senators were elected by state legislators. Thus, Lincoln and Douglas were trying for their respective parties to win control of the Illinois General Assembly. The debate previewed the issues that Lincoln would face in the aftermath of the victory in the 1860 presidential election. Although Illinois was a free state, the main issue discussed in all 7 debates was slavery in the United States. In agreeing to the official debate, Lincoln and Douglas decided to hold one debate each on the 9 congressional districts in Illinois. Because both had already spoken in 2, Springfield and Chicago, within a day of each other, they decided that their joint appearances would be held in the remaining 7 districts. The debates were held in 7 towns in the state of Illinois: Ottawa on August 21st, Freeport on August 27th, Jonesboro on September 15th, Charleston on September 18th, Galesburg on October 7th, Quincy on October 13th, and Alton on October 15th. The debates in Freeport, Quincy, and Alton drew especially large numbers of people from neighboring states, as the issue of slavery was of monumental importance to citizens across the nation. Newspaper coverages of the debates were intense. Major papers from Chicago sent stenographers to create complex texts of each debate, which newspapers across the United States reprinted in full, with some partisan edits. Newspapers that supported Douglas edited his speeches to remove any errors made by the stenographers and to correct grammatical errors, while they left Lincoln's speeches in the rough form in which they had been transcribed. In the same way, pro-Lincoln papers edited Lincoln's speeches but left the Douglas text as reported. After winning a plurality of the voters, but losing in the legislatures, Lincoln edited the text of all the debates and had them published in a book. The widespread coverage of an original debate and the subsequent popularity of the books led eventually to Lincoln's nomination for the President of the United States by the 1860 Republican National Convention in Chicago. The format for these debates was one candidate spoke for 60 minutes, then the other candidate spoke for 90 minutes, and then the first candidate was allowed a 30-minute rejoinder. The candidates altered speaking first. As the incumbent, Douglas spoke first in the 4 of the debates. So, Mr. Blowman, why are you talking about this? Well, this is part of the history that also happened on August 21st, right? But this was back in 1858, right? Right? So you see how history will join with certain types of different histories that when you can look back in retro, you can put the puzzle together. See? So let me show you something for those, again, I try to, if I'm going to do these things, I try to feed and make sure that those who do, again, I want to appreciate all you who come in here, who are listening, who all might be subscribers. If you're not, if you're kind of contemplating about it, go ahead, hit that like button over there and subscribe if you feel that you need this or something. Because again, I try to do this daily because every day history is always in the making and history has already happened. So I'm going to show you that debate, right? Let me show you something. Let me show you what was actually said at that time. And let's see if I can pull that up. Let's see. Let's see if I can pull this up for y'all. Let's see. All right, and I'm not able to see the screen, so I'm hoping that you can hear me clearly. I'm hoping that everything I'm stating and speaking about is heard clearly. And let's see. Let's go in here. Pull that up. Where's that at? Should be in here. Just give me one quick second, y'all. Again, like this is like my third day at it. I took 2 days, really, to just get that one part. You know what I mean? I had to get that one part. Because remember, if those who listened yesterday, or not 2 days ago, man, something went haywire, so it took me a day or so to work it out, but I got it out, so let's check it out. Let's see if I can get it to work for you guys. All right, let's see. I think I got it for you here. Then we're gonna take the Douglas part first. So sit back for a second, check it out.
We have now heard the leading arguments for the two candidates for the high office of United States Senator from Illinois, Judge Stephen A. Douglas and Mr. Abraham Lincoln. According to the usual custom of debate, each of the candidates will now speak in rebuttal. Judge Douglas.
My fellow citizens, my good friend Mr. Lincoln has addressed you with his usual artless sincerity, his pure homely charm, his perennial native humor. He has devoted a generously large portion of his address to most amiable remarks upon my fine qualities as a man, if not as a statesman, for which I express deepest gratitude. But at the same time, I most earnestly beg you not to be deceived by his seeming innocence, his carefully cultivated spirit of goodwill. For in each of his little homilies lurk concealed weapons. Like Brutus in Shakespeare's immortal tragedy, Mr. Lincoln is an honorable man. But also like Brutus, he is an adept at the art of inserting daggers between an opponent's ribs, just when said opponent least expects it. Behold me, ladies and gentlemen, I am covered with scars.
How dare they laugh?
It's only a speech, Mother.
Anytime you say it.
Mr. Lincoln makes you laugh with his pungent anecdotes. He draws tears from your eyes with his dramatic pictures of the plight of the black slave labor in the South. Always he guides you skillfully to the threshold of truth. But then, as you are about to cross it, he diverts your attention elsewhere. He never, by any mischance, makes reference to the condition of labor here in the North. Perhaps he's ignorant of the fact that tens of thousands of workers are now on strike. Hungry men marching through the streets in ragged order, promoting riots because they're not paid enough to keep the flesh upon the bones of their babies. What kind of liberty is this? And what kind of equality? Right. Mr. Lincoln harps constantly on this subject of equality. He repeats over and over the argument used by Lovejoy and other abolitionists, to wit, that the Declaration of Independence, having declared all men free and equal by divine law, thus Negro equality is an inalienable right. Contrary to this stands the verdict of the Supreme Court in the case of Dred Scott. Mr. Lincoln is a lawyer, and I presume, therefore, that he knows that when he seeks to destroy public confidence in the integrity, the inviolability of the Supreme Court, he is preaching revolution. He asks me to state my opinion of the Dred Scott decision, and I answer him unequivocally by saying I take the decisions of the Supreme Court to be the law of the land, and I intend to obey them as such. Now will I be swayed from that position by all the ranting of all the fanatics who preach racial equality, who would ask us to vote, eat, sleep, and marry with Negroes? And I say further, Let each state mind its own business and leave its neighbors alone. If we'll stand on that principle, then Mr. Lincoln will find that this great republic can exist, forever divided into free and slave states, and we can go on, as we have done, increasing in wealth, in population, in power, until we shall become the admiration and the terror of the world.
Got that right. He got that one right.
Nat Turner's 1831.
He said, we'll be the terror of the world. Let us have our slaves and let us do what we feel is right. All right? So let us do what we feel is right. Why are you trying to break up this machine? Why are you trying to break up what we established, that our forefathers have established, Lincoln? What is the real purpose of what you're trying to do? And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you something that some of them ain't never going to tell you. Like I said, I don't knock all these other channels on what they do. You see, I'm not monetizing it. And they may even knock this whole channel down because of what I'm actually doing. The thing is to actually show you the history. You're not going to actually get the history. Some of you ain't going to read, right? Some of you need to get a little this and a little bit of that. But if you just see what Douglas was saying, that was the position that was a Democrat at that particular time, which is the same thing that you hear Trump be saying now when he's talking about how the Democrats, again, after I'll play something, but just keep that in mind. How the Democrats were looking at things, and then here's the Republican, but I'm going to explain to you why they were taking that position. Okay? Let me look and see who in the... I see there's 4 people in there. Can somebody let me know that I'm okay? You can hear? Okay. Yeah, Tony Smith. Thanks a lot, brother. If you're still in there, thanks a lot. I'm glad to be back again. Like I said, my whole platform ain't like other platforms. I'm not going to be on here trying to, down another sister, another brother. My job for me and my spirit and what I believe, my DNA as being a descendant of this landmass, is to inform those who may not have, sometimes we have people in our family who know things but can't articulate it, or for you yourself, you may want to but don't have the time. So because this is what I do, so I'm always, I know what's this, and this, and that, and I got no problem. There'll be a time when I have to come to y'all about things, but for now, I'm glad to be back. This is what I want to always do. It kept me from doing it for a little bit, but again, here it is for you. Now, let's get to the Lincoln part, because, see, he said something too. Because, see, they always try to make it seem as appear that, when you go to public school systems, right, they make you think that Lincoln was really for freeing the slaves and that his heart and so forth, that's what he was about. I can't tell you what that man's heart and spirit was. I can only give you what was left, right? We can only go on what was left. And let's see. Put this over here. Okay, I got it right here. Okay, so let me play this for y'all. All right, let me hold on, let me get there because I don't know why they keep trying to pull this self up in there. And here we go, y'all.
Mr. Abraham Lincoln.
Judge Douglas has paid tribute to my skill with the dagger. I thank him for that, but I must admit that he can do more with that weapon than I can. He can keep 10 daggers flashing in the air at the same time. Fortunately, he's so good at it that none of the knives ever falls and hurts anyone. Now, you've heard the judge make allusion to those who advocate voting and eating and marrying and sleeping with Negroes. Whether he meant me specifically, I do not know. If he did, I can only say that just because I do not want a colored woman for a slave, I do not necessarily want her for a wife. I do not need to have her for either. I can just leave her alone. In some respects, she is certainly not my equal any more than I am the judge's equal in some respects. But in her natural right to eat the bread she earns with her own hands without asking leave of somebody else, she is my equal and the equal of all others. Now, you've heard the judge speak about our own labor condition. As an American, I cannot be proud that such conditions exist. But as an American, I can ask, would any of the striking workers in the North elect to change places with the slaves in the South? Will they not rather say the remedy is in our hands, and still as an American, I can say, thank God we live under a system by which men have the right to strike. I am not preaching rebellion. I don't have to. This country with its institutions belongs to the people who inhabit it. Whenever they shall grow weary of the existing government, they can exercise their constitutional right of amending it, or their revolutionary right to dismember or overthrow it. If the Founding Fathers gave us anything, they gave us that. The purpose of the Dred Scott decision is to make property and nothing but property of the Negro in all states of the Union. It is the old issue of human rights versus property rights. It is the eternal struggle between two principles. The one, the common right of humanity. The other, the divine right of kings. It is the same spirit which says, you toil and work and earn bread and I'll eat it. As a nation, we began by declaring all men are created equal. There was no mention of any exception to that rule in the Declaration of Independence. But we now practically read it, all men are created equal except Negroes. If we are to accept this doctrine of race or class discrimination, what is to stop us in future from decreeing all men are created equal except Negroes, foreigners, Catholics, Jews, or just poor people? That is the conclusion towards which the advocates of slavery are driving us. Let each state mind its own business, says Judge Douglas. Why stir up trouble? This is the complacent policy of indifference to evil. And that policy I cannot but hate. I hate it because of the monstrous injustice of slavery itself. I hate it because it deprives our republic of its just influence in the world, enables the enemies of free institutions everywhere to taunt us as hypocrites, causes the real friends of freedom to doubt our sincerity, and especially because it forces so many good men among ourselves into an open war with the very fundamentals of civil liberty, denying the good faith of the Declaration of Independence and insisting that there is no right principle of action but self-interest. In his final words tonight, the judge said that we can be the terror of the world. I don't think we want to be that. I think we would prefer to be the encouragement of the world, the proof that at last man is worthy to be free. But we shall provide no such encouragement unless we can establish our ability as a nation to live and grow. And we shall surely do neither if these states fail to remain united. There can be no distinction in the definition of liberty as between one section and another, one class and another, one race and another. A house divided against itself cannot stand. This government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free.
We have now heard the leading arguments for the two candidates for the high office of United States Senator from Illinois.
Okay. Well, y'all, I'm not sure how much longer they're going to allow me to do this, y'all. I think they want to say that I have content issue detected. They have one of their agents in here, and they don't like what I'm doing. See, I get what they talk about when they say copyrights. I get that. But this is a teaching moment. This ain't about me actually trying to profit off of the content. It's there for the purpose of what was said. Now, the problem is this is not stuff that nobody really wants to look at, especially when you're looking from the opposite side. See, those words that he spoke, right? The eloquent, articulate, the words of what was justice and right sounded good for the time. But was that really the agenda of what this was about when they look at this North and the South? That's what we have to look at. See, let me put it to you like this. A lot of people assume that, the Emancipation Proclamation was about freeing the slaves, and that the South itself was trying to hold on to, that old-fashioned good old business. So was the North really in the business of destroying slavery for the simple fact of the slaves? Or was there some other business being had or another view being looked at that this money that y'all making, we can find a way to make it for ourselves? We can turn these people and we can be making money off of them instead of you are down in the South. Because see, that South was those originals. See, you gotta go back. History will tell you that South, the Confederate, goes back to when they originally set up that whole 13 colonies, right? That was King's business, right? That was the King's business, right? And some of you who be saying y'all Hebrew Israelites and talking about the King James Version, that was King James business, right? Setting up that in these colonies, right? So what you have to ask yourself in this debate, what they're talking about is, about the Union, splitting up because, again, the power that we possess. We've always possessed this power. We've been an economical force because what a lot of people don't realize of the diaspora of the Americas is we actually brought that whole Europe out of that debacle situation. We made them all have economics. See, when people want to sit here and talk about reparations, right? When they talk about that, it ain't just here. We got a lot of people that owe us. And then we even, if you want, again, when I say other people, I'm not saying that African descent is not in my bloodline. I'm not saying that my ancestors at one time did not come from the continent that we call Africa, or we identify as Africa. What I'm saying is that even on some of them places in the continent who had their hands in supplying, you understand, helping us to be ushered over here, owe us in some form or fashion. Everybody wants to give us an apology. Now, some of you may not feel what I'm saying because, again, I'm going to get to that point where some of you are like, that old school business. I ain't about this race business and so forth, right? And that was a long time ago. We've made strides. You have to, be self-sufficient, and that's all fine and dandy. But again, cause and effects, man. See, you'll look at places of Chicago and you talk about how the detriment of Chicago and the psychosis and the perpetualness that of crime and so forth. This is systemic all the way back, dude or sister. This go all the way back, brother. This don't start. This start this 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. See, everybody don't want us to have this conversation is because the reality of this is, you call something that you made an effect to it, and then you just allow it to just manifest itself into this, as said, these monsters. Now that y'all see that today, I seen before I came, I started the show today, they showed The Predator now. They got the new movie coming out called The Predator. First it was Predator, now The Predator. See, all this coded language talking about, we already know, because again, remember when Hillary Clinton was running, she called super predators. We know who that code language was about. So again, you would rather stigmatize and say that these people are naturally like this, when the simple fact, this is a cause and effect. So when nobody wants to really talk about slavery and all that it has entailed and what it is derivative of and what is the byproduct of, as if it can just dissipate and fade away like some smoke. Like hit the joint or hit the square, blow the smoke, and then after a while you see the cloud, and then after a while it just dissipates. That's how they felt like that's what happened with us. That trauma that they done said now, that trauma can be passed on from generation to generation, and it has not been dealt with. But we can't talk like that because you racist, right? You hate. No. This is just what it is. You know what it is, but you fail to want to deal with it, and you rather just say, well, since it's such a problem, you're creating such a dynamic of situations where, okay, we got some of our people who are going to school and doing a lot of kissing up that ass to make that bread. We see this shit every day. We see them from professional athletes, all that. It's a lot of that happening because, again, they letting you know this their game. This is their game. You're either going to play this game the way they want to play it, or you step to the side, right? So I'm just saying that Lincoln-Douglas debate was about who was fighting for, who was going to be able to make that money off of us. Since the old kingdom that originated it got undercut by those who was participating in it in different facets of it, undermined, stole it from them, they took over. They ran the new business. Those was the ones up in the north. The ones in the south were still part of the old Confederate. But again, what they're trying to tell you was those that was where? Going back to the king, where they came from. England, Britain, all that, right? So, now, what people don't recognize is the fact that why did they say that they was going to give up on slavery? Huh? Why? Okay, Lincoln's going to emancipate. England was the first one to say, well, we're going to stop. We're going to do all this stuff. We're going to stop. You know what it really was about? See, a lot of people, when you study history, you're going to figure this out. What happened in 1885? What happened in 1885, y'all? That's when they came up and colonized. Oh, that's when they had the Bandung Conference where they carved up Africa. Think about what I'm saying. If they say 1865, they finna emancipate you, but in 1885, they on the continent cutting it up. Do you know why they emancipated you now? Ain't no need to do that long distance when we can get right off the continent, because you know the best cotton come from where? In Egypt, in Africa. So ain't no need for us to over here because you fighting about us, we taxation you and all this stuff. We finna shut your whole shop down. We finna cut your whole business out because we right on the continent. Everybody be talking about this, but nobody seem to connect the dots. 1885, France got its west part. Britain got this part over here. France is over here. Germany cut over here. USA couldn't get in it because of it was where it was already. That's why it's always out of the business. And then Italy was going to do what it's going to do later, because that's why they're going to fight with the Ethiopians later and gas them up, right? So the business of letting you go had nothing to do about nobody feeling good, that the condition you was in. It had nothing to do with that. Had nothing to do with that. It was all about, we had a new business even closer, and we got the factory making of those people that we got there. So now, those people who are in the north, because again, the industrial revolution is happening in Europe, and they manufacturing and they, okay? So now that you got still the cotton here, so what we're gonna do is we gotta make them like they working, and we're gonna pay them, and we're gonna make this mass production while we're gonna kill this other business. And so that whole debate was about who was fighting over us. Who's gonna get the spoils of this money maker? Huh? Got his best hoes out here. And the pimps is fighting for, man, that she make too much money, he make too much money. And they fighting for it. So now, look at where we are today in 2018. Going back again to that same old debate. Because if you come in with the mantra of making this country great again, what made it great in the first time? What made it great the first time? You get what I'm saying? So now that everybody that came here undercut us, and you get most of us in a position that we can't do anything, because some of us, see, this is another thing too. Some of us come out of that, let's say, Generation X, right? They talk about the Generation X that come from like 65, come down to about 79, I think, somewhere about 79 to 65, right? And then from 80 to another, going to be I guess that, what they going to be like almost that the Generation Y, X, Y, and then you got that Generation Z or that new generation, right? Okay. Now, those who came out of Generation X came at a time when jobs are a little bit more plentiful. You could lose a job on Monday, and by Wednesday, you got another job. Some of y'all might remember that. Some of y'all out here. It was back, that was used to be like that. You lose a job, you had another job. You know what I'm saying? The job, you can leave a job, get another job, lose a job, get another job. It was like that at one time. But then again, the influx of immigration under us, we wasn't paying attention to all that. So you're sending all these people. I remember when people were coming over from Cambodia and everything else. But when our relatives of the Haitians tried to come over, they was like, no, y'all can't come in here. And the reason why that is, I got that history, because that history just came up too. That history of that revolt just happened on the 22nd. That was yesterday. They made sure, they did everything possible. Make sure I was not getting on yesterday and the day before. Because again, I went from Nat Turner to, I'm going to get to the Haitian Revolution and some other things that also happened. That's what I'm saying. Do you know what be happening every day in history? Every day. Not just specific days that they set up on the calendar and say, oh, today is Christmas, or October 31st is going to be Halloween, that for those who celebrate all that. No, what about every day? What happened in history on that day? See, so that's what my channel is going to be about. My channel is going to tell you every day I'm going to come on until they don't let me get on to tell you what was happening in history on this day. And you're going to find out and you're going to learn, and I want you to tell your people, right? That's what these platforms is supposed to be about, if this is what you want to do. Now, again, there might be some people of Caucasian persuasion. Again, you understand the history. You understand the plight. You understand what position that, maybe, let's say for you, if you want to, they say there's good ones. There's good and bad and all. You claim to be a good one. How could you be mad knowingly? Because again, you ain't going to tell all your secrets. You're not going to tell everything. We know that. As much as you might, donate, and you might, take one in, and what was that? Was it Blindside? Big nigga out there could play football. Bring him in, bring him to my house, clean him up. He end up turning being pro. That kind of shit. Okay, I get it. Kaepernick type. We get it. We get that, right? But the totality of it, and seeing that this foregone conclusion of a plan that's been laid out, and how it's slowly fruition and going into whatever it is that the end game is supposed to be, some of us see that. A lot of you know it, but it ain't your job, right? It's to do the little bit that you do to say that you're not culpable of none of this stuff. That was not you. That's not, I didn't do anything. Slavery, again, like Ben Affleck. Ain't Ben Affleck about to drink himself to damn death? Ben Affleck drinking his ass to death because he sat around, fucked around, and did that damn DNA test with, what's his name? The one that couldn't get in his house and the police arrested his ass. What's his name? Professor, well, you know his name with the glasses shit. You know his name. I can't think of his name right off the top. But he did that DNA test on him, and when they went back and looked at the DNA test, that nigga was of slave owners, and it fucked him up, and he ain't been right since then. And that's what happens. See, that the fragility of mind of people who know what they might be attributed in kin and bloodline to, but then you try to do everything. But then again, you got to look at the condition that these people, that because of that cause and effects and what it has produced, and you sit back in horror, and then now that it's kind of like boomeranging back, now everybody want to arm up and be like, well, we're going to kill them all. And it's like, wow, man, really? And then if whatever you believe in, like whatever that higher source, because again, I know that ideology-wise, your people had to make that these people had to be a lower species in order to justify and validating your mind what y'all doing. Again, that's separated. Ain't all of you, might be some of you, maybe partial of you, but you understand what I'm talking about. And so, man, let me slow up, man. Let me slow up. See, let me slow up. Because, see, also on this date, I be wanting to go in, y'all. But again, you know, it's not that I can't go in. It's just the fact that it's enough been said. And there'll be another time for that to be talked. If they don't shut me down, because I already seen it says about my content. And I know what that's from. That's something they're playing that video. But I had to do that. I had no choice. So anyway, we're going again for August 21st. Again, remember, I'm going back because it didn't get me on the 21st. But we got to get back to this 23rd for you going to be around. So did you know that Kenyatta was freed on August 21st? You know who? Jomo Kenyatta, right? Leader of Kenyan independence movement, is released by the British colonial authorities after nearly 9 years of imprisonment and detention. 2 years later, Kenya achieved independence and Kenyatta became prime minister. Once portrayed as a menacing symbol of African nationalism, he brought stability to the country and defended Western interests during his 15 years as Kenyan leader. Kenyatta was born in the East African highlands southwest of Mount Kenya sometime in the late 1890s. He was a member of the Kikuyu ethnic group, Kenyatta's largest, and was educated by Presbyterian missionaries. In 1920, Kenya formally became a British colony, and by 1921, Kenyatta was living in the colonial capital of Nairobi. There he became involved in the African nationalist movement, and by the 1928 had risen to the post General Secretary of Kikuyu Central Association, an organization opposed to the seizure of tribal land by European settlers. In 1929, he first went to London to protest colonial policy, but authorities refused to meet him. Kenyatta returned to London several times over the next few years to petition for African rights, and then remained in Europe in the 1930s to receive a formal education at various institutions, including Moscow University. In 1938, he published his seminal work, Facing Mount Kenya. Hold on, y'all. What the fuck about Kenya? Okay, which praised traditional Kikuyu society and discussed his plight under colonial rule during World War II. He lived in England, lecturing and writing. In 1946, he returned to Kenya, and in 1947 became president of the newly formed Kenyan African Union. He pushed for majority rule, recruiting both Kikuyus and non-Kikuyus into the nonviolent movement, but the white settler minorities was under-yielding in refusing a significant role for blacks in the colonial government. In 1952, an extremist Kikuyu group called Mau Mau began a guerrilla war against the settlers and colonial government, leading to bloodshed, political turmoil, and the forced internment of tens of thousands of Kikuyus in detainment camps. Kenyatta played a little role in the rebellion, but he was vilified by the British and put on trial in 1952 with 5 other KUA leaders for managing the Mau Mau terrorist organizations. An advocate of nonviolence and conversationalism, he pleaded innocent in the highly politicized trial, but was found guilty and sentenced to 7 years in prison. He spent 6 years in jail, and then he was sent to an internal exile in Lodwar, where he lived under house arrest. Meanwhile, the British government slowly began steering Kenyatta to black majority rule. In 1960, the Kenyan African Nationalist Union was organized by black nationalists, and Kenyatta was elected president in absentia. The party announced it would not take part in any government until Kenyatta was freed. Kenyatta pledged the protection of settlers' rights in an independent Kenya, and on August 14, 1961, he was finally allowed to return to Kikiluland. After a week of house arrest in the company of his family and supporters, he was formally released on August 21st. Okay, goes on. As Kenyan leader until his death in 1978, Kenyatta encouraged racial cooperation, promoted capitalist economic policies, and adopted a pro-Western foreign policy. He used his authority to suppress political opposition, particularly from radical groups. Under his rule, Kenya became a one-party state, and the stability that resulted attracted foreign investments in Kenya. After he died on August 22, 1978, he was succeeded by Daniel Arap Moi, who continued most of his policies, affectionately known in his later years as Mzee, or Old Man. In Swahili, Kenyatta is celebrated as the founding father of Kenya. He was also influential throughout Africa. All right. That is Jomo Kenyatta, who was freed on August 21st. Ironically, he will die same time a day after, in August 22nd. But about 12 years later, right? All right, so, okay, all right, somebody left, okay. Well, let's see. Now I got this here to play for you. Into this interlude. Let's see if I can pull it out. They're probably going to shut me down, y'all. Probably gonna shut me down. So you're gonna have to look for my channels again. The next channel that I would have, if you don't see this operating no more, would be Black Minds TV. Again, BLAKMINDZ TV. All right, so let me see if I can pull up this other one to get us into the next segment of the next part. Let me see if I can find out what is that. Maybe I already got it. Let's see. Nope. Can I add that in there? 1 second. 1 second. And so, matter of fact, even before I get into it, I'll talk about a little about that. See, isn't it funny that here it was that Jomo Kenyatta was actually, trying to make some headways for the people who originate on the landmass versus those who settled, right? And because he, was pro for it, and they were not, no, you can't do that, it was a problem. To the fact that, okay, it rose to a situation where, those powers that be was like, no, this is what we doing, and the minority is going to rule, which is crazy. But see, here the minority don't rule. But see, on that continent, again, going back to 1885, the reason why they're coming back to in 1885 instead of them getting it earlier is because, again, the creation of the gun doesn't come until about, 1350, right? The creation of the gun. So at those times, if you look at the original guns that were created, right, those guns would not have been sufficient to be able to wipe off a dark continent, as they called it, right? You couldn't wipe it off, not with them type of guns and the so-called ammunition or weapons of that time. So by the time they're coming back, they now have a little bit more technology in their weaponry, right? And so, again, you know, like those who might have been on that first night when I showed that young brother that was talking about, you know, being pro and talking about, that don't come to my mouth. Ain't never gonna be hearing me talking about we going to go kill the white man or that shit. That's not what I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say that. You understand? But that's what he was saying. And he was saying that he gonna sit back and drink a cold beer, and he said you're never gonna be able to do it because they got all this weapon and technology. Of course. I mean, do you expect that somebody to be in the position that you have been in? And see, a lot of people believe that, think that they're gonna somehow build economically and get yourself, you know, excuse me, build yourself into some kind of power that you go. That's imaginary, dude. And anybody who thinks of that, that's imaginary. Think about that. I live in your house with you. You let me come in. Then you say, okay, I can have a room. So I start putting me. I got a nice bed set. I get me some, chest of drawers and stuff, and I start putting in stereos and big TVs. And next thing you know, I say, man, I'm gonna get some carpet for the whole house. And you're like, oh, okay, well, shit, I can benefit from that. That'd be cool. So I buy them up on carpet. Next thing you know, I'm like, man, I buy a dining room set. I can't put it in my room. Can I put it? I start putting the dining room table. You start realizing I'm starting to change your house the way I want it. You gonna have a problem with that, or you gonna let me keep building it? You gonna let me keep building from that room I was in to now then spread on out till it's all it's invading into your areas, and you think you ain't gonna say nothing? Come on, man. Let's keep it real. Again, like I say, a lot of stuff is never gonna be said openly. You understand? Those kind of conversations you have to have with me. You know what I'm saying? But we're never gonna have that conversation on here. Nah, never that. I just give you the analogy to just say, well, this is what that is. That's what you're doing, as if they ain't looking at what you're doing. Remember that they told you in that verse in that Bible, they told you, said, let us go down there. Yeah, I think God said that. Y'all think God said, let us go down there and stop them from building, because they may build up to heaven. God gonna say that? That's what God said, man. Come on, man. God didn't say that, man. That's man talking. Who that said we better go down there and stop them because these motherfuckers gonna keep building and we ain't. Who was building? Anyone building in Europe? Anybody found a pyramid in Europe yet? Not yet. Oh, you found some megaliths, right? But you ain't found no structures of no high science built yet. So who is that coming down? Oh, they in the north supposedly coming down, right? Okay. So that's the same thing here. You gonna start building and think they gonna say, let us go down there and put eminent domain on your ass. They gonna put eminent domain on your shit. Now I ain't, man, look, don't get it twisted. Don't think that I ain't like, what's in your head? I'm in there too. I'm for that, but I know better. I know that. You understand? You are in an empire, right? You can't have two steering wheels in a car. Ain't no two steering wheels gonna be in one car. You got to have. Oh, there you go. Come on, man, leaving. I know they in here. I know they in here. I think I'm just doing that. I ain't gonna. When I don't do live and do the video, that'd be different. But right now, this is just for what this is. But you think you gonna do that? It ain't gonna happen. Not like that. So, one more part of history for that day. So I want to do another video here. Actually, hold on, man. Let me do this, man. Let me do this because she deserved to have this. A lot of us, we grew up on some of the sounds of her, right? So why not? Let me go on out. If I got to go out, I can't lose with this. I can't lose with this one. Let me make sure this is who that is. That's who it is. Let's get it. Let's get it. Bring her on out here. supposed to be playing. It's gonna give her her dues, cause they finna strike me out, y'all. They gonna do it. They gonna do it. Let me show you the one that's 45. And I did this one. Is that it? This is it, y'all. Check it out.
Miss Aretha Franklin. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Aretha Franklin.
is won.
Tonight, boy. You here tonight. It might be the last time they let me do what I do, y'all. But you can't say I didn't go out for you. You can't say I didn't go out for you. Came in, helped me out. Hey, got to get that to rest in peace, Aretha Franklin. Probably one of our greatest that we produced. We have a lot, but man, that sister really did, sing from her heart and her soul, and we did a moment of silence for her, but as a matter of fact, just giving her dues. Well, the reason why I actually used her is because also on this date of August 21st, it was the anniversary of the 4th Pan-African Congress held in New York City, USA. It was the 4th annual Pan-African Congress was held in New York City, USA. The Congress was sponsored by the American-based African-American Women's Organization, Circle for Peace and Foreign Relations. The Congress is open with 208 delegates signing Lift Every Voice, as we just heard with Aretha Franklin, right? Other delegates were attracted from the West Indies, West Europe, Asia, South America, and from Africa. There was Nana Amor III of the Gold Coast, Story Seed of Liberia, and a representative of Sierra Leone and Nigeria. It's getting a little fragile. Following a lively debate, delegates took some resolutions and made demands. Firstly, they reaffirmed the manifesto of the previous Congress in the name of people of African ancestry. The Congress reiterated the rights of Africans to land, suffrage, and education, and also put forward a new demand for treatment as civilized men despite differences of birth, race, or color. The participants condemned the United States' control of Haiti and white minority rule in South Africa, demanded genuine independence for Africa or Egypt, and stated that imperialism was incompatible with democracy. Following I think I did that, okay, and I think that's the end of that there. That's the end of that article. So that's also happened on August 21st of that year. Matter of fact, that wasn't that, what year that was. That was in 1927. Okay. So I'm going to do a little interlude. We're going to get to August 22nd. A lot of good stuff happened on that day. I don't know if I'm going to get through all this. I'm not even sure if y'all even hear me, because it tells me on my side that due to the content, you might be temporarily, let's see what it says. We detect copyright audio and video in your system. Your stream may be temporarily blocked. Could anybody give me a number 1 or something? Let me know that I am still active and live, or am I talking to myself? Anybody like to let me know what's good? Okay. Anybody there? Okay, if not, I'm going to go into the interludes. And let's see, let's get back. All right, go to the interludes, y'all. Interlude, get you set up for this next part. So now I'm getting back to August 22nd. Okay? So what happened on August 22nd? Which I would have been on yesterday, but due to technical difficulties of keeping me off yesterday, I have to make up today. So like I say, a lot of you are getting some good stuff today for those who really know what I try to do out here. And some of you who do probably think, man, I can't waste my time to do. It's crazy as hell. But the truth of the matter is I'm actually put you up on something that you should be knowing. So guess what happened also on August 22nd? The Mexican secession happened. What's the blow you, man? Wait a minute, man. We black, man. What you worrying about? Wait a minute. Better know your history. Know your history. That's all I'm going to tell you. And those who are in Spanish. And matter of fact, there's a brother in here that said that everything was good. I'll give you a little shout out, my brother. If you didn't break out, was this Hilicuti 360 or 1360. Appreciate that, brother. All right, so Mexican Cession happened. Mexican Cession is the region in the modern-day southwestern United States that Mexico seceded to the United States in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848 after the Mexican-American War. This region had not been part of the area east of the Rio Grande, which had been claimed by the Republic of Texas, though the Texas annexation resolution 2 years earlier had not specified the southern and western boundaries of the new state of Texas. The Mexican Cession, which is about 529,000 square miles, was the third largest acquisition of territory in the United States history. The largest was the Louisiana Purchase, with some 827,000 square miles, including land from 15 present U.S. states and 2 Canadian provinces, followed by the acquisition of Alaska, about 586,000 square miles. Most of the area had been the Mexican territory of Alta California, while a southern eastern strip of the Rio Grande had been part of Santa Fe de Nuevo Mexico, most of whose area and population were east of the Rio Grande on lands that had been claimed by the Republic of Texas. Let me move this down a little bit. 1835, but never controlled or even approached aside from the Texas Santa Fe expedition. Mexico controlled the territories later known as the Mexican Cessions, with considerable local autonomy punctuated by several revolts and few troops sent from central Mexico. In the period of 1821-1822, after independence from Spain up from 1846, when U.S. military forces seized control of California and New Mexico on the outbreak of the Mexican-American War. The northern boundaries of the 42nd parallel north were set by Adams-Onis Treaty signed by the United States and Spain in 1821 and ratified by Mexico in 1831. The eastern borders or boundaries of the Mexican Cession was the Texas claim at Rio Grande and extended north from the headwaters of Jojo Riviera, not corresponding to the Mexican territory boundaries. The southern boundaries were set by the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which followed the Mexican boundaries between Alta California to the north and Baja California and Sonora to the south. The United States paid Mexico $15 million for the land, which became known as the Mexican Cession. So, based on that little bit of history right there, and if you actually know the internal, see, Wikipedia and Google are great for get some quick facts, but reading a book gets you the, you know what I'm saying, the cellular part of history. Because see, that coming from other people who read or been told and they had compiled or made a compilation of that. And sometimes reading is like getting bits and pieces of nuggets of gold or just information in itself that you may not get. See, everybody gets what's read on Wikipedia. Everybody gets that, but it don't get all into the cellular part as some of the stuff I might be saying here, which is when you look at that Mexican secession, well, a trick bag in that. That was really a trick, right? Because when you go into the background of it, you'll find out that they originally had came to Mexico because, again, Mexico was under the Spaniards. See, haven't y'all ever noticed that when you read in or just know about history, they keep Spain out of the picture? Why is Spain never really part of the correct, or let's say just the general knowledge of history when you talk about this country? Because again, like I was telling y'all back on the 20th, when you talk about the Papal Bull and the splitting of Spain and Portugal going east and then Spain going west, so that means everything that was west from that point had to be under Spain's control. So how is it that they tell you and tell I that, you know, when they building this 13 colonies, there was nobody here, but they'll tell the Indians, right? But they never tell you that Spain was here too. They don't tell you France was here too. right? They don't tell you that part. They just make you think that it was just these people, the one that had us colonized, right? But the point I want to make is, as I was reading in that, didn't you hear that they went all the way to California? We're talking about from California, which is in the West Coast, bring that all the way back around and go over to Texas, and then you also talking about Mexico in itself, plus New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, all them territories up in there, all that was part of this too. So isn't it ironic that a people today will sit here and call immigration, right? And again, I get it, okay? On the capitalistic society, when you buy and purchase shit, then if you buy some shit, that's your shit, right? Ladies, if a lady in here, you buy some hair, right? There used to be a time where that would be a joke. If it told a woman, yeah, your hair fake, or you got on, that's a weave, it would be a little shame. But they got to the point that if I bought it, it's my hair, right? So the same thing would be here, which is we purchased that, as it said in the end, right, for $15 million, right? What? Think about that. $15 million that you purchased all that territory? But that's not really what it was. That was really, again, like I said, I'm going to get to I'm going to give you some backdrop on that. Now, let's see. Do I want to go here? Because, see, I have to go there. I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. See, I wouldn't be the whiteologist that I am if I didn't say it. So you had that President Polk at that time, right? So what you had, remember, as earlier I was talking about them Confederates in the South. Now this is where this game was getting ugly at, because see, they started to look in those territories west, and it was like, man, we could get that territory out there, we could bring slaves out there with that good, you know what I'm saying, that fertile land and that climate, and we could produce more. But guess what? They didn't want to do that, right? So they went to Mexico and asked them if they can purchase that from them. They was like, man, we ain't selling that, right? So what they did is they used a tactic. There was people, and they don't specify whether they were, you know, people of government or so forth. They said there were some Americans in those places, what they were calling at that particular time, when they come from Mexico or Spain, New Spain, right? And something took place where, you know, people got robbed and maybe a couple got killed. So they used that as the catalyst for you killed some of our people. Based on that, you know what I'm saying, you're going to pay them for that, you know, such and such, okay? Or you're going to make this deal with us. Now, they had a president at that time. His name was General Santa Anna. Right? You ever heard that General Santa Anna? Now, something had took place over there where they ended up having him exiled in Cuba, because actually these mugs was actually trying to get Cuba too, right? They were trying to get Cuba. And so what happened was, while Santa Anna went in exile, that he used to be the president, because they kicked him and ran his ass up out of there, and he went up to Cuba. So what they did is they said, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to make a deal with this cat. Now, we're going to help you to get your ass back in there to be president. And when we get your ass back in there to be president, you're going to give us California, and you're going to give us that Texas shit. We're going to throw you a little bit so you can have some money for yourself. So we're going to provide the military to get you in and get you back in. You game? I'm game. Okay? That and so he gets back in. He kind of reneges on the deal, and now they're going to use the borderline of what they're talking about with Texas, because, see, Texas actually had been independent of the United States, right? And based on Mexico at that time was like, okay, you could be independent as long as you don't ever join with the United States, everything going to be cool. But then Texas decided to union with the United States, and then it was like, all right, fuck it, it's on. And so that's how they end up acquisition Texas, but they're going to change the end. They threw in $15 million. Truth of the matter was the deal was already done when they had Santa Anna to set him up to get him back in. Just like they'll tell you about Alaska. It's funny how when you watch the news and they talk about the whole thing about collusion and Trump and all that shit with Russia, but it was Russia that was in the background that was to help them to fight against France and England when they was coming to fight you about this civil war. Because remember, France and England, right? Because the South, the Confederates was part of, that's King's business. But then Russia was back there, because a lot of people don't know that Russia was the back part where you talking about Oregon and all that up to Washington. That was Russian territory. Russia was part of this at one time. They had some interest in that, and they said, if you jump in, we in. So that's how we got Alaska, is because that, so that they said, okay, the people ain't going, if we just give you money for helping us, that shit ain't going to look good. So what we're going to do is you're going to give us Alaska, and we're going to give you this money as a cover-up. That's how you got Alaska. That's how you got Alaska. That's how you got it, man. That's how you got that land that they call Alaska. That's why when that Sarah Palin was talking about, I can see Russia from my house, and a lot of people laugh. Oh, fuck, shit, Alaska was, of course you could see Russia. But, you know, they don't teach you really geography in these schools, especially public schools. You ain't learn no shit like that. So you wouldn't really know it sounded funny and shit. How the fuck you can see Russia? Well, shit, she in Alaska. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, but that's what happened with the Mexican secession. That also happened on August 22nd. Now, the other thing that happened on August 22nd is this. You had the Haitian Revolution. Yeah. 1791 to 1804, right? Yeah, a couple people that made that. I think didn't Tariq do something? Tariq Nasheed did something on that Haitian Revolution? But yesterday was the anniversary of it. So here it goes. The Haitian Revolution has often been described as the largest and most successful slave rebellion in the Western Hemisphere. It is certainly the only servile uprising that led to the creation of an independent nation, Haiti. Slaves initiated the rebellion in 1791, and by 1803 they had succeeded in ending not just slavery, but French control over the colony. The Haitian Revolution, however, was much more complex, consisting of several revolutions going on simultaneously. These revolutions were influenced by the French Revolution of 1789, which would come to represent a new concept of human rights, universal citizenship, and participation in government. In the 18th century, Saint Dominguez, as Haiti was then known, became France's wealthiest overseas colony, largely because of its production of sugar, coffee, indigo, and cotton generated by an enslaved labor force. When the French Revolution broke out in 1789, there was 5 distinct sets of interest groups in the colony. There were white planters who owned the plantations and the slaves, the Petit Blancs, who were artisans, shopkeepers, and teachers. Some of them also owned a few slaves. Together, they numbered 40,000 of colony residents. Many of the whites on Saint Domingo became to support an independent movement that began with France imposed stiff tariffs on the items imported into the colony. The planters were extremely disenfranchised or disenchanted with French because they were forbidden to trade with any other nation. Furthermore, the white population of Saint Domingo did not have any representation in France. Despite their calls for independence, both the planters and Petit Blanc remained committed to the institution of slavery. The 3 remaining groups were of African descent, those who were free, those who were slaves, and those who had run away. There were about 30,000 free black people in 1789. Half of them were mulattoes, and often they were wealthier than the Petit Blancs. The slave population was close to 500,000. The runaway slaves were called Maroons. They had retreated deep into the mountains of Saint Domingo and lived off subsistence farming. Haiti had a history of slave rebellion. The slaves were never willing to submit to their status, and with their strength in numbers 10 to 1, colonial officials and planters did all that was possible to control them. Despite the harshness and cruelty of Saint Domingo slavery, there were slave rebellions before 1791. One plot involved the poisoning of masters. Inspired by the events in France, a number of Haitian-born revolutionary movements emerged simultaneously. They used as their inspiration the French Revolution Declaration of Rights of Man. The General Assembly in Paris responded by enacting legislation which gave the various colonies such autonomy at the local level. The legislation, which called for all local proprietors to be active citizens, was both ambiguous and radical. It was interpreted in Santo Domingo as implying only to the planter class and thus excluded pit blancs from government. Yet it all allowed free citizens of color who were substantial property owners to participate. This legislation, promulgated in Paris to keep Santo Domingos in colonial empires, instead generated a three-sided civil war between the planters, free blacks, the pit blancs. However, all three groups would be challenged by the enslaved black majority, which was also influenced and inspired by events in France. Led by former slave Toussaint Louverture, the enslaved would act first, rebelling against the planters on August 21st, 1791. By 1792, they controlled a third of the island. Despite reinforcements from France, the area of the colony held by the rebels grew as did the violence on both sides. Before the fighting ended, 100,000 to 500,000 blacks and 24,000 to 40,000 whites were killed. Nonetheless, the former slaves managed to stave off both the French forces and the British, who arrived in 1793 to conquer the colony and who withdrew in 1798 after a series of defeats by Louverture's forces. By 1801, Louverture expanded the revolution beyond Haiti, conquering the neighboring Spanish colony of Santo Domingo, present-day Dominican Republic. He abolished slavery in the Spanish-speaking colony and declared himself governor-general for life over the entire island of Hispaniola. At the moment, the Haitian Revolution had outlasted the French Revolution, which had been an inspiration. Napoleon Bonaparte, now the ruler of France, dispatched General Charles Leclerc, his brother-in-law, and 43,000 French troops to capture Louverture and restore both French rule and slavery. Louverture was taken and sent to France, where he died in prison in 1803. Jean-Jacques Dessalines, one of the Louverture's general, and himself, as a former slave, led the revolutions at the Battle of Versailles on November 18, 1803, where the French forces were defeated. On January 1st, 1804, Dessalines declared the nation's independence and renamed it Haiti. France became the first nation to recognize its independence. Haiti thus emerged as the first black republic in the world and the second nation in the Western Hemisphere after the United States took away its independence from a European power. That happened August 21st. I thought that was 22nd, but that was a date. Should have been back on the other one. But okay, it happened on the 21st, y'all. Now this other one here, and probably the last one, because I don't want to do that, because I'll do tomorrow. I'll do 23rd, which is today, and 24th tomorrow. Since I'm 2 days behind, I do 2 days on it. So, I got this one. I want to leave this one in your head. I want to leave this one in your head. Now, check this out. See, is this the one? Yeah, I think I want to go. Yes, I want to go here. I definitely want to go here. Definitely want to go here. I think this is not the one I want, though. Let's see. Let's do this. See, everybody fall asleep yet? Oh, I got 5 in the house. Okay. 5 in the house. 2-minute break interlude because I want to pull up the right thing. I want to pull up the right I want to pull up the right article for this. Give me 1 second, y'all. say, Mr. Bloyer, how are you going to use this one? This one here, because I'm going to leave you with something that you probably know. You know, like sometimes you have people and you be wondering why they be so hatred, right, towards their own people, right? Like again, if you had seen the show on the 20th, where I showed you this one brother that had profound hatred, and he said it with his own lips. He said how he really hate, black people, and he went into this long diatribe of his reasons for why he do, right? Well, there's somebody in history that some of y'all are going to be surprised. Some of you might know, some of you might not know. Ever heard the name of J. Edgar Hoover? You heard of J. Edgar Hoover. And if you haven't, you're going to learn something of him. Well, check this out, y'all. It was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it should have been yesterday, I think. The 22nd is the day he became the assistant of the FBI director, right? So that was part of it. But there's a reason why I'm doing this, and let me get this out the way, and let me give you this. It says, John Edgar Hoover was born in Washington, D.C. on January 1st, 1895. Upon completing high school, he began working at the Library of Congress and attending night classes at George Washington University Law School in 1916. He was awarded his LLB and the next year his LLM. Mr. Hoover entered on duty with the Department of Justice on July 26, 1917 and rose quickly in the government service. In November 1918, he was named assistant to the Attorney General, and the following year, he led the Department General Intelligence Division when the GID was moved in the Bureau of Investigation in 1921. He was named Assistant Director of the BOI on May 10, 1924. Attorney General Harlan Fiske Stone appointed the 29-year-old Hoover acting director of the Bureau, and by the end of the year, Mr. Hoover was named director, which would have been yesterday, that day of that year of 24. As director, Mr. Hoover put into effect a number of institutional changes to correct criticism made on the predecessor administration. Director Hoover fired a number of agents who were had considered to be political appointees and or qualified to be special agents. He ordered background checks, interviews, and physical testing for new agents of applicants, and he revived the earlier Bureau policies of requiring legal or accounting training. Okay, let me go down a little bit here. Under Director Hoover, the Bureau grew in responsibility and importance, becoming an integral part of the national government and an icon in American popular culture. In the 1930s, the FBI attacked the violent crime by gangsters and implemented programs for professionalized U.S. law enforcement through training and forensic assistance. For example, the Bureau opened its technical laboratory to provide forensic analysts on Bureau investigation as well as service to other federal, state, and local law enforcement officials. During the 1940s and 50s, the Bureau gained headlines for its staunch effort against Nazi and communist espionage, during which World War II, the Bureau took the lead in domestic counterintelligence, counterespionage, and counter-sabotage investigation. President Roosevelt also tasked Bureau with running a foreign intelligence service in the Western Hemisphere. This operation was called the Special Intelligence Service, or SIST. In the early years of the Cold War, the Bureau took on the added responsibility of investigating the backgrounds of government employees to ensure that foreign agents did not infiltrate the government. More traditional crime investigations, including car theft, bank robberies, and kidnapping, also remain important. In the 1960s and 70s, the Bureau took on an investigation in the field of civil rights and organized crime. The threat of political violence occupied many of the Bureau's residents or resources, as the threats of foreign espionage. In spite of Mr. Hoover's age and length of service, president of both parties made the decision to keep him at the helm of the Bureau. When Mr. Hoover died in his sleep on May 2nd, 1972, he had led the FBI for 48 years. He said, why, Mr. Blow Your Mind, would you be talking about that? Why would you do that? Well, let me show y'all something. Let me show you something. See if I can put it up on the screen here first. Let me do this. I want y'all to see this. I want you to see this first. And then when I show you the last bit that you're going to sleep on, you'll know why. So, all right, let me show you this. See here. Let's see if y'all see, because some of y'all might be like, oh, I know this already. You might not. That's the thing. That's why I'm blowing your mind. I'm trying to blow the dust off your mind. People sleep out here. So I have to try to come out and try to blow the dust off people's minds. So, all right, let me show you something here. All right, got it up here. And as I get back into this, man, it's going to flow a lot better. Right now, I'm still getting it. All right, I want y'all to see this. Right, let me show y'all this. Let me take this down here. Go over here and check this out. See, can y'all see that? Can y'all see that? Y'all can see that, right? Let's see, I don't think it's up there. Okay, you got 3 in the house. Somebody fell asleep. Okay. Y'all should be seeing it. Let's see if it's showing it. Ain't showing it. Let's see. Come on. I ain't seen a picture up there yet. I done sent it already. Should be up there. No, not yet. They blocked me yet? They blocked me, y'all. I don't see the picture. Y'all see the picture? I don't see the picture up there yet. No, they don't want that up there, do they? Oh, really? You gonna do that? Y'all gonna do that? Oh, what happened? Wow, hold on. They're showing the wrong thing here. Go back. Okay. All right, now. Do it show it now? I'm not sure if y'all can see that or not. I'm not sure if y'all can see that. Well, if y'all can see it, okay, if you look at that picture, that's a picture of John Edgar Hoover. Look at him. Look at him good. Look at him real good. Do he look like who you think he might be? Look at him good, because I'm about to pull something up for you. I'll pull you something up that you may have not known. Check this out. Let's see if I can pull it up. I got one here, and one here. And give me the other one. Give me the other one. I guess, let's see. What's this one? I take this one. Okay, let's see. All right, now look at that picture good there. Look at the picture real good. Now listen to what this is being said. All right, so let's go here first. One. What happened to that one they got there? Let's see. Where's that one at? Hold on. Is that it? It's got to be this one then. All right, let's try that one. Let's try this one. All right, here you go. Here you go, y'all. Let's see. 112. It's got to be this one, right?
I'm afraid all the time of the dark.
Terrifying secrets can be buried deep inside.
I start seeing fire. I start seeing people burning us up.
But they don't stay buried forever.
Don't you ever tell this. That old goat, he's my second cousin. Everybody got something to hide.
2 words. We can't talk about this.
Keep your mouth shut.
A famous enemy, a family connection, and a search for the truth that breaks down racial barriers and reveals how much we really have in common.
I had to free my spirit from all the hatred and animosity that I held in my heart so that I could raise my children with no hate.
Oh, yeah. Did you see that? Did y'all peep that one? Did you see it? See, when somebody hates you that bad, they probably family. Huh? When somebody go out their way the way he went out and how he did what he did, it's because he was somewhat had an affiliation, and due to him, you know, knowing his history and knowing his background, I see it's kind of delayed. I don't know if I'm talking over it or not, but it should be done, right? Huh? He had a black family. J. Edgar Hoover was black, y'all. Ain't that some crazy shit? That who could hate you? So wait a minute, check this out. We know certain people don't like us and they hate the shit out of us. But who hates you worse? Black people on black people, huh? Niggas hate niggas, huh? Ain't nothing worse than that. And a mug who was passing for white so he could be in the company of would do way more damage. And he was in that seat for 48 years. Can you imagine that? See, that's why you got to know your history. Because see, when you look back, what they say, Sankofa, when you look back, you get to see the puzzle. And it makes sense now that the person who was doing all this terrorizing during this particular time is because he had a self-hatred of the same people because of whatever situation they have in his family, how he didn't get to know. I mean, matter of fact, go check out that video. That's just the like the little tidbit of it. Go and seek that. Go look at J. Edgar Hoover Black. Go watch that video and you will see. They're going to tell you the history of the story. They did it. They say that was from the secret in their family. But you know what? That ain't being told. Because matter of fact, didn't they just do a new J. Edgar Hoover not too long ago what they did with Leonardo DiCaprio? Didn't they use him? Right? But I don't know, and I never seen the movie, so I don't know whether they put that part in it, but I knew about this particular aspect of it. So how many of you knew about that? And if you didn't know, now you know. Right? So again, like I said, man, I'm going to try to come on, once a day, same time. I think this is a good time between 8 and 10. Most everybody done did what they had to do. So now you kind of sitting back. So, I'm going to give you a little piece of something you can sleep on. You understand? Get some history. Learn what you're supposed to know. And that's why remembrance is freedom. See, you'll be free because you're going to know. Well, you know what it is, y'all. I'm Mr. Blows Your Mind, your whiteologist. Want to thank everybody who stayed tuned through the whole show. I appreciate you. Again, those who are new to this platform or the first time you ever heard it, go ahead, subscribe, hit the like button, share. If the channel still exists, y'all, because it may not exist after tonight. They may go ahead and just go get rid of it, right? It'd be like, no, man, you can't. No, man, you got to go with that. This ain't what this is about. You're gonna hit me with the copyright and everything else. But like again, my show is not like the rest of these people's show. Informative. It's facts. No one's gonna be able to dispute it. Now you may not like my opinion on aspects of it, but these are the documents. This is receipts. Is the history. So again, I'm your host, Mr. Whiteologist. I want to thank everybody. Stay tuned for the next show. Peace, love, and I'm gonna leave you with this as we.
Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.
I'm here to tell you tonight that the businessmen, the mayor of this city, the police commissioner of this city, and everybody in the white power structure of this city must have a responsibility for everything.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
Luther and I, and everyone in this arena tonight, are unified by the same great American values. We're proud of our country. We respect our flag. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Race is when you use your power and influence to subject people into inferiority. Utterances can't be racist.
Look around you, man. They own this shit. They own this couch you sitting on, them shoes you got on your feet, this building, this school, this country, you. We're behind enemy lines, dog.
So you must first of all remember that this system was not originally designed with black people in mind. Right on. And it definitely was not prepared for black people to in the end begin to demand their rights and an equal share in this country which they've died for. Right on. Hey, and we definitely are not going back to Africa.
In the church, we used to sing the song, "Good news, the chariot is coming." While you sit here today, knowing that you have come to hear good news, you must realize in advance what good news for you might be bad news for somebody else. What good news for the sheep might be bad news to the wolf.
They say, oh, things are getting so much better for you. In 1849, it was hitting blacks on the head 100 times a day. In 1990, they hit them 48 times a day. Isn't it better? Oh, it's got to be better. You're saved 52 blows.
The only purpose of most black Americans on earth today is to destroy.
I think that's noble. Italians love Italians. When Irish love Irish. But when a nigga loves a nigga, it's an unpardonable sin.
They have blood in their hands. When we say they have blood in their hands, we are not saying him, George Bezos, went and killed. But white people colonized us. They dispersed us. They enslaved our people. They sucked our economy dry. They are still sucking it dry even today. That's white people. Tony Blair, George Bush, Napoleon Bonaparte, Leopold, Adolf Hitler, Benjamin Netanyahu. All white people, they are the same. They are racist and they are full of hate.
I've been waiting for you. You have many questions, and though the process has altered your consciousness, you remain irrevocably human. Ergo, some of my answers you will understand, and some of them you will not. Concordantly, while your first question may be the most pertinent, you may or may not realize it is also the most irrelevant.
Why am I here?
Our world is coming crumbling down. The coons are coming.
You got to understand that white America has an uncanny way of making the victim the victimizer. Excuse me, master, for putting my head in the way of your club. Not that your club is brutalizing my head and putting hickeys on it. My head got in the way of your free swing and broke your shiny stick, and I want to apologize for that.
Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix. You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision. While it remains a burden assiduously avoided, it is not unexpected and thus not beyond a measure of control, which has led you inexorably here.
There are more connections in the human body than there are stars in the galaxy. We possess a gigantic network of information to which we have almost no access.
Matrix is older than you know. I prefer counting from the emergence of one integral anomaly to the emergence of the next, in which case this is the 6th version.
5 months before. 3. There are only 2 possible explanations. There were 5 months before. Either no one told me, or no one knows.
Precisely. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equations.
Control me! I'm gonna smash you to bits! You can't make me do anything like Chris!
Choice. The problem is choice.
Let us remember that we are not brutalized because we're Baptists. We're not brutalized because we're Methodists. We're not brutalized because we're Muslims. We're not brutalized because we're Catholics. We're brutalized because we are black people in America.
Because white people made him to be what he is. They made him to look evil, because that's their role, to make all of us black people to look evil and to hate ourselves. I can't hate.
You're a nigga till you die. If you're a poor nigga, you're a poor nigga. If you're a rich nigga, you're a rich nigga. But you never stop being a nigga, and if you get to be educated, you're just an educated nigga.
I'm told every day I'm on air that I'm racist because I call out racism. That is maddening to me, and I'm crying about it because it's crazy.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is teaching you and I and trying to tell the white man to get this powder keg out of his house. Let the black man separate from his house. Let the black man have his own house. Let the black man have his own land and his own property.
I thought the bitch was white! Damn it! I thought the bitch was white!
That's true.
I think that white people are so guilty, knowing what they've done to black people, that they feel if the deeds were reversed, they would hate the black man if he had done the same thing to them. So it's actually, it reflects a guilt complex on the part of whites when they ask us, do we hate them? And if you notice, Uncle Sam has formed a habit of going all over the world. He calls it the ugly American, or the American image. He thinks that everybody hates him because it's a guilt complex. And if you think that if you are worried about Europeans hating you, and they're your allies and your cousins, well, naturally it would follow for you to think that Negroes in this country would hate you, especially in light of what has been done to black people in this country by white people.
Now, check it out. The white ball dominates everything, right? Knocks the shit out the yellow ball, the red ball, right? And the game's over when the white ball drives the black ball completely off the table.
But you have to see that all of this is hypocrisy.
I love Malcolm. Malcolm called me the Sunday that he died. I was working Basin Street East. He said, "Brother Greg, you coming by today?" And I said, "Malcolm, I love you." And I said, "I love you so much, I don't even want to take a chance to be there." He said, "What do you mean, Brother Greg?" I said, "Well, I close tonight, Sunday night at Basin Street East." And I said, "But I had my wife book me a flight into Chicago at 8 o'clock this morning, and I'm going to Chicago, and I had way beneath my salary booked me into a college about 10 miles from the airport. And I'm going to go there and speak this afternoon, and I'm going to stay there until they tell me you dead. Because I'm not going to let this government get 2 of us for the price of 1. And I'm going to call Adam Clayton Powell when I finish talking to you and beg him not to come there. Because today, the United States government is going to get you."